Hola amigos, this is John Harris, smallballsuccess.com again. I've got some notes here that I'm going to try to keep track of because I got a lot of stuff to cover. I'm going to address the subject of Paul Reddick, whose website I think he has 2 or 3 now, but the 90 mile per hour club was the one where I first encountered him. I had a young son at the time who was really in need of good pitching advice, and Paul has always provided that. He's just, I think, a really great guy, a superior pitching coach. You're going to see some things on my website, Small Ball Success. If you browse around, there's some suggestions there that I make as a relatively short person myself who had a short son who was a pitcher. And they're suggestions. I, except as a dad and a person who's thought about a lot of this stuff because of first-hand experience, I have ideas and I try to experiment and validate my ideas, but I don't have anything like Paul's resume and his contacts that he has with so many great pitching coaches like Brent Strom. So I would always tell you that if you find something on my website that conflicts with something that Reddick says, do what Reddick says. Take the professional advice over the recommendation. I'm just kind of groping around. However, Coach Reddick has also lately started to kind of branch out into hitting advice, and I feel because of my 20 plus years of researching the dead ball era and how the guys who used to bat 400 routinely would swing a bat, I feel like I know a good bit about that subject. I've discussed it in a book called Hitting Secrets from Baseball's Graveyard and Mountain. Now this is my most recent production called Landing Safeties, from a phrase used by journalists way back when. And this is also a discussion of how the dead ball hitters would practice their craft. Not all of those guys were short by any means, but the things that they did, since the ball was dead and didn't display much liveliness, the way that they got the ball to leave the infield often used a lot of the techniques that I think a shorter player today could use to achieve a superior batting average. Well, Coach Reddick is continuing to reach out to other coaches, so this isn't just his advice, but and in fact that's one of the reasons I want to talk about Paul Reddick in this and another video, because he kind of represents a cross-section to me of the best coaching advice that's out there on the internet. So when he says some things that make me scratch my head, I feel that I'm not just addressing him, but the coaching establishment. I want to push back a little bit on some of the points here. Here's an email that I received about 3 days ago. Should have brought my reading glasses over here. It starts out in big bold letters. I was 100 swings per day guy. This is from a coach who's writing Reddick. And Paul says, does your coach need to change from being a swing coach to a hitting coach? And the coach continued, the guy who's writing to Paul says, first I have to confess that I was 100 plus swings day coach until I watched The Truth About Hitting, hyperlinked. What a great logical breath of fresh air and practical wisdom. And Paul continues, taking 100 swings per day has nothing to do with becoming a great hitter. Here's why. Everyone agrees the pitch you swing at has everything to do with how well you hit. If you're just working on the swing, you're only working on the part of hitting after you've decided to swing. I'm going to try not to laugh, but I'm thinking of, okay, I'm going to teach you how to drive. Stop sitting there looking at the dashboard and figuring out where the pedals are. I'm going to turn on the ignition because you might as well not even be in the car if the car's not moving. You need to learn how to drive, right? So we want the vehicle to be moving. Why would you learn how to hit without standing there and watching live pitching? Or I could ask Paul, why are you teaching pitchers how to pitch when they don't even have a ball in their hand? One of Reddick's most it's brilliant because it's so simple. I think one of his most helpful drills for any young pitcher is what they call the wall drill, where you stand up against the wall and then you go through your wind-up and you make sure that you're coming forward instead of leaning back, so that your hand never actually hits the wall, even though you're standing right up against it. Your weight is shifting forward, and by the time your hand lifts up, you actually are so far forward that your hand sweeping up is not going to strike the wall. Well, you're not throwing a live ball at a hitter in your house when you're practicing that up against the wall. So why wouldn't we practice a swing without actually facing live pitching? Now, sure, there are, I think I kind of understand where this is going. There are guys who like to model what they feel is the ideal swing. I got a trophy upstairs that I meant to bring down. It's got the kid looking off into the distance. If that's the ball he's looking at, then he must have popped it straight up. But it looks like he's so enamored of this great swing that he took. I can see a kid kind of practicing this suitable for framing swing that he's, oh wow, I just feel so immortal and superior. There goes the bat, there goes the ball. You're not even watching a ball come in. And you can do that with your imagination, and you should do that when you're taking your practice swings. You should, I think, always have a guy out there on the mound in your imagination. You should, see him getting his sign. What are you doing while he's getting his sign? Now he comes set. What are you doing as he comes set? Now his hands break. What are you doing? He comes forward. He's delivering the ball. Are you ready to swing? Are you tracking the ball? You should not be, looking out over there, end up looking out over there. The whole thing, the process of practicing your swing should be oriented on an imaginary pitcher delivering an imaginary ball. And you deliver your real life cut to this imaginary ball. You can actually, I call it shadow swinging after the image used in the Negro Leagues in the 30s and 40s. Those guys had so little money to devote to their enterprise that it was a game ball and that was it. They didn't even have a practice ball. And if the ball was fouled off, the spectators had to run it down and throw it back into play. So there was no ball to warm up with. And they would play what they called shadow ball. They would toss an imaginary ball around the infield. Actually, that is a very good way for, say, the second baseman or the shortstop to practice the double play. You can get your footwork down. You can practice your hands working, get the ball, get it away quickly. You can do a lot of stuff as long as you have an imagination. You should do that when you're practicing your swing. But I just don't get it in this letter that I received, that there's something bad about taking a dry swing when you're not actually out on the field looking at a live pitch. I've heard Coach Reddick make derogatory comments about what's called muscle memory as well. And I'm sorry, but muscle memory is just a biological fact. It's real. We all know it's real. I'm in a new house here, and I'm still kind of bumping into things when I turn out the lights at night and try to walk upstairs. In my old house, I could have blindfolded myself and gone from one end to the other, and I never would have run into anything, because in all those 20 years, I somehow, call it muscle memory or whatever, it's not really the muscles that are remembering. Of course, it's the nerves that activate the muscles, but it's all up here. You learn where to put your feet, where to put your hands. Again, why are we doing the wall drill with the pitching if there's no such thing as muscle memory? We're trying to graft certain movements into our minds so that we don't have to think about them when we're actually pitching. The swing is the same way. Now, one of the most important things about the swing that I preach in landing safeties is that I think it should be a slightly downward swing. And that needs some rehearsing, especially nowadays. I talk about this so much in other videos and in the book itself, how it's hard to do the old school swing with the new age bat. The bat is too short. Even worse than that, you can use a short bat, but it has to be balanced. And the bats now have no balance at all. Everything's weighted to the barrel, and the handle is just this little toothpick. So if you're interested in doing that swing, it's something you really have to practice. It's something I've really had to practice. The other subject in this video that I want to take up quickly is, I'm already up to 10 minutes, but I wanted to talk about how swinging down on the ball is not what Paul Reddick says it is in one of his other videos. He goes back to the old Ted Williams thing about, well, the ball is coming down here and you need to swing up into the path of the ball to hit it. Why would you swing down on it? There's only one point of intersection. Blah, blah, blah. I made 2 videos already about swinging slightly downward so that you create backspin. The word backspin is used on both those videos. You don't want to, and I agree with Paul Reddick utterly about this, you don't want to do that back elbow cocked, swinging way down on the pitch so that you actually loop under it. That's where you create that severe backspin. Sometimes it's called an uppercut swing for some reason. I don't know why, because it's really undercutting the ball. If you swing it when the bat's traveling up, you usually topspin it severely and hit some kind of weak ground ball. So what we're talking about with landing safeties and in this other old school program, we're talking about shifting your weight decisively forward, and that brings the downward stroke into a very level kind of follow through. You spread your hands, you do that reverse parallel motion of the hands. This is how the old guys would hit, and I don't know what kind of angle that is, but I wouldn't say it is more than 20 degrees. It might be about 5 degrees. It's a very mild kind of descent and a very straight descent into the ball. You're aiming for the ball's center. You're not trying to clip its underside. You want to hit a low line drive. Look, backspinning the ball so that you get a can of corn, no, we don't want to do that. But why is Paul Reddick in so many of these videos giving us this either or, black, white, up, down, toggle on, toggle off? Why are we getting these simplistic choices between the devil and the deep blue sea? I mean, science is all about qualification. There's too much. We don't want to go all the way over to this extreme end of the spectrum, but there's also stuff over here that we don't want to do. We're looking for a golden mean, usually, when we're trying to steer the correct path. We're trying to qualify and fine-tune. So I would be very suspicious of advice that exaggerates distinctions and says, never do this, always do that. You usually have to kind of use your common sense to figure out where the middle of the road is.